Let's graph the following polynomial function using calculus. It says sketch the function f of x equals x to the fourth minus 8x squared plus 16. Include the domain, intercepts, maxima and minima, and any inflection points in end behavior. Include an analysis chart. So what we want to do is, I want to go over the general ways to solve any polynomial and be able to graph that. But you'll probably notice that this particular one has a really nice way to go about this. You might notice that the square root of this first term, if we were to take the square root of that, is actually x squared. And the square root of this last term, if we were to take the square root of that, is actually 4. And the middle term is 2 times x squared times 4. And so what that means in this particular case is that means that is a perfect square. So we could start in this specific situation by writing this as x to the x squared minus 4. It's the sign of the middle term in a perfect square that is written between the two terms when you square it. And so it's x squared minus 4 all squared. So now what we could do is we could write that as x plus 2 times x minus 2 all squared, which means really we have the x plus 2 twice and the x minus 2 twice. Now I told you I was going to go over the general strategies. That is how it works out here, but in general, let's see what we would do. What you'd want to do is you'd want to go ahead and try to find the possible rational roots. And so for this particular example, what we do to find those possible rational roots is we list factors of the 16. And so the factors of 16 are going to be plus or minus 1, 2, 4, and 8, and 16. And then we list the factors of, in this particular case, it's just a 1 in front of the x to the fourth. And so obviously that in this case, it's just going to be plus or minus 1. But if we had any other number, we'd write the factors of that number as well. And then what we do is we list all the possible combinations of the 16s divided by the 1s. And so here, it just ends up being that your possible combinations are these. And then what you can start doing is you can start using synthetic division to try to check those possible rational roots. And so for synthetic division, what you have to do, I know what they are already. Let's suppose, though, I started by checking 2. Now I have an x to the fourth term first, and so that has a coefficient of 1. Then I have no x cubed term, so that's going to be a coefficient of 0. Because remember, we have 0 x cubes there. And we also have 0 x's. But we do have an x squared term, and so that would have a coefficient of negative 8. And then we'd have 0 x's and 1/16. And so if you add this together, we add the columns. 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 times 1 gives me 2. I add that to the next column, and I get 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. I add that to the next column. I get negative 4. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Add it to that column, negative 8. And then 2 times negative 8 gives me negative 16, which gives me a remainder of 0, which is what I want if I found a possible rational root. So what that means is that x minus 2 is a factor. Now we can do the same thing again. And if we do the same thing again, now with that answer, we are going to try 2 again. I know already it's going to work. But if I didn't, and I didn't get a remainder of 0, then I would have to try another number. But I'm going to try this because it's going to work. So if I try 2, what I get is 2 times 1, which gives me 2. I get 4 there, 2 times 4, which gives me 8. I add that up, I get 4. 2 times 4 gives me positive 8. And negative 8 plus 8 gives me a remainder of 0. So what this means here is that I'm left with x squared plus 4x plus 4. And at that point, it's a quadratic that I can factor. It's a perfect square, which gives me x plus 2 all squared. And so as we had up here, we had that x minus 2 as a factor twice. And then we have this factor of x plus 2 all squared, which together, those things give me the answer that I had over here. And so that gets us the same result whether we do it using possible rational roots in synthetic division, or if we go ahead and factor if possible. So let's now pick it up from that factored form. We already know the domain because this is a polynomial function. That's going to mean that x is a set of all real numbers. There's no vertical asymptotes or anything because we're not dealing with a rational function, which you can check out the video at the end here or in the description for one with a rational function. But it's polynomial, so it's going to exist for any real numbers, which is really great here and makes the domain really simple. But now we move on to the intercepts. Let's pick it up from here. So we're going to let the y value be 0 or f of x be 0, which means that we are going to have the first factor be equal to 0 or the second factor be equal to 0. Now, both of those are squared. And so if you take the square root of both of those, you end up with x plus 2 is 0 and x minus 2 is 0. And most of us can see here that just gives us solutions of x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 2. Now it's worth noting for both of those that they are both double roots. Those roots appear twice. So what that means is at that point, it's going to look like it's quadratic. And so that's something to keep in mind as we go to move to the graph in a little bit. So those give us the x-intercepts. And so the other intercept we want here is the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, what we're going to do is we're going to set the x value to be 0. And so we're going to go ahead and solve this. So f of 0 is equal to 0 to the power of 4 minus 8 times 0 squared. And hopefully you can already see it. It just ends up being this last value, the last term there. So we get 16. And so that means that our y-intercept is going to be at 0 and 16. So we have our x-intercepts and we have our y-intercepts and our domain at this point. And so now we want to learn about what we do as far as the maxima and minima. So what we have to do is we have to go ahead and take the derivative of each of the three terms along the way. The derivative of x to the fourth is going to be 4 times x, and we lower that power on x by 1. So 4x cubed. And then the next one is going to be the 8 that's out front, but times the 2 from the exponent, so that's 16. And then we lower that power by 1, and we get x to the power of 1. And then 16, the derivative of any constant is just 0. And so that is our first derivative. So what we can do with that is we want to set that equal to 0. And the reason we want to set that equal to 0 is because that will allow us to actually solve for the critical points. So 0 is equal to 4x cubed minus 16x. We can common factor out an x here. We can actually also common factor out a 4. So let's take a 4x out. That's going to leave us with x squared minus 4. And what you see happening here is we can get this one more step further. Again, we have a difference of squares, so it's x plus 2, x minus 2. And that gives me 3 critical points. Each of these factors, when they're set equal to 0, is going to give a critical point. So when 4x is equal to 0, that gives me x is equal to 0. When x plus 2 is equal to 0, that gives me x is equal to negative 2. And when x minus 2 is equal to 0, that gives me when x is equal to positive 2. And so what we have now is 3 critical points. And you'll notice that the negative 2 and positive 2 are also x-intercepts, which is interesting. So that means the critical points are going to be on the x-intercepts. So what we can do now is we can sub those into the original equation. So f of 0, when we sub 0 in, we get 16. We already know what that is. F of negative 2, when we sub that in, we end up getting a value of 0. And when we sub f of 2 in, we get a value of 0 as well. Now, I didn't actually have to sub those in to solve those because those were points I already had from earlier in the question. And so that gives me my critical points. But what I want to do is I want to look at my inflection points now, and that takes the second derivative. So the critical points were the first derivative, and now we move on to the second derivative, which is the inflection points. The second derivative, we take that first derivative and we take the derivative of that. And so this is going to give me 3 times 4, which is 12, and then 1 degree less on the x cubed, which is x squared now, and then minus 16. The degree of 1 that was on the x times 16 and x to the power of 0, which is just 1. So that's my second derivative. And now what I can do is I can set that to be 0. And when I set that second derivative to be equal to 0, and so I can common factor out of that a 4, and I'm left with 3x squared minus 4. And so now at this point, I can solve when 3x squared minus 4 is equal to 0, because 4 can't be equal to 0. And so that gives me 3x squared is equal to 4. And if I divide by 3, I end up getting that x is plus or minus the square root of 4 over 3. Don't forget the positive and the negative, because if you substitute a negative value in for x, once you square it, it becomes positive as well. So don't miss that. Every time you solve an equation with a term squared in it, it always is going to give you positive or negative if it's isolated like that. So now we have those. And so now we're going to sub these in. So f of, this ends up being, by the way, plus or minus 1.15. So plus or minus 1.15. So I'm going to substitute a negative 1.15 in to the original equation. That's going to give me my points. And that's going to get me 7.1 repeated. And then I'm going to substitute f of 1.15 in. And lo and behold, I get the same answer, 7.11 repeated. And so these are going to be my inflection points. And the last thing I need before building my analysis chart and finally graphing it is my end behavior. For my end behavior, what I want to do is I want to recognize that this is a positive leading coefficient. So it has a positive leading coefficient. And because of that, we know some things, but there's one other thing we need to be aware of. Not only does it have a positive leading coefficient, the highest power is x to the fourth, so it's even. So because of that, what that means is we're going to go from quadrant 2 to quadrant 1. And now let's put all this together on an analysis chart and then graph this. So here's how I build an analysis chart. I look at all the intervals around every critical point and every inflection point. And what you see here is my critical points are at -2, at 0, and at 2. And my inflection points are at -1.5 and at 1.5. And I have every interval to the left and right of all of those. And what I do in terms of my rows down below is I'm looking at the sine of the first derivative. Then I'm going to look at the slope, what that means in terms of the slope, because if the sign is positive, that means it's going to be a positive slope. If the sign is negative, that means it's going to be a negative slope. So that's what that means, because the derivative is the slope of the original function. And then we are looking at the second derivative, the sine of that, and that's going to determine our concavity. If the second derivative sign is positive, it's going to be concave up. If it's negative, it's going to be concave down. Think of it kind of like smiling versus frowning. That's a really easy way to remember that. So before we fill this in, let's just remember that our first derivative was equal to 4x cubed minus 16x. And our second derivative was equal to 12x squared minus 16. And so we're going to substitute points in those intervals into those two equations to figure out those signs and the slopes and concavity from them. So for example, if I had a number that was less than -2, so we start there. Well, if we substitute a number, let's say -10 for simplicity's sake, we're going to get a very large negative number here, and we're going to get a positive number here, but it's not going to be as big. And we could sub that in to actually check that, but I don't care about what the number is, I care about what the sign of it is, positive or negative. So this ends up being negative. What that means is the slope is going to be like this. At x equals -2, this is a critical point, and so that means the slope, or the sign, is going to be 0, and the slope is 0. And now we go to the next interval, and so we check a value from -2 to -1.5, say -1.5, and we find out that that has a positive sign. Now we go ahead and we can identify that's a positive slope. At our inflection points, the positive slope is going to continue. So from one critical point to the next, we're going to have that same value. We don't need to check that 3 different times. That's all going to be the same. And so we can identify that that's a slope all going up that whole segment. At x equals 0, we have another critical point. That slope was 0. And now we go and we check all 3 of these, and we sub any value in there. I'm going to substitute 1 in for simplicity's sake. And when I substitute 1 into that first derivative, I found out that that is an answer that's negative. So that means they're all going to be negative because they're going to be the same from one critical point to the next. Then we check at x equals -2. Well, that's a 0. We know that's a critical point, so that first derivative sign was going to be 0, which means it looks like that. And then if we check anything bigger than 2, say 3, we find that again that's positive, and so the slope is going to be up like that. So now we go ahead and do the same thing with the second derivative. When I have a value that's less than -2, say -10, we find that that second derivative is positive. Now the key about this is the in between all the inflection points, so all the way from here to here, and then from that inflection point to the next, the concavity is all going to be the same. And so we can go ahead and say, well, those are all going to be positive. And what does positive mean? Well, that means that it's going to be concave up. And then at that inflection point, that's going to be a sign of 0, and that's because it's an inflection point. And let's go ahead and fill that in over here as well. That inflection point, it's also going to be 0. And now when I put any value in between negative 1.5 and 1.5 into that second derivative, let's choose 0. That's a really easy one because that just gives us negative 16. So those are all going to be negative, which means it's going to be concave down. And then from 0 onwards, or from 1.15 and onwards, we go ahead and we can substitute something in. Let's say 2. When I substitute 2 into that second derivative, I get positives, which means it's going to be concave up. And so now what we can do is we can translate that information onto the graph with the end behavior that I listed previously. So now we remember the end behaviors was from quadrant 2 to quadrant 1. And let's go ahead and fill some points in on here as well. Label the axes, and we're going to label our critical points and our inflection points. Now it's important that you choose an appropriate scale. And so you'll notice that my y-axis is going up a different scale than the x-axis. And that's so I can get that y-intercept of 0, 16 in. So that's at 0, 16. And then I had these other two x-intercepts at negative 2 and positive 2. Those were also critical points. And so we had critical points at those two locations. We also had a critical point at 0 when the x value was 0. So we have a critical point at all 3 points on the graph so far. And then we have these inflection points at 1.15 and 7.11. So 1.15 and 7.11. And then we had another one at negative 1.15 and 7.11. Negative 1.15 and 7.11 there. And now when I look at the analysis chart on the left, I can see that it starts with a negative slope and it's concave up. So it's coming down with that negative slope, concave up, all the way to negative 2 when it becomes a slope of 0. And then what it's going to do is it's going to have a positive slope now from negative 2 up to 0. So positive slope. But then what's happening right at negative 1.15 is that's an inflection point. So it's concave up, and then it changes to now being concave down. And so that's going to reach a local max at positive 16 there. And then really the same thing's happening on the other side. We now have this negative slope. It's still concave down, all the way it's concave down, so that negative slope. And now what we have is an inflection point, so it changes from concave down now to concave up for the next segment. And it's also changing at 2 to now be a positive slope. And so it was a negative slope all the way to 2. Now it's a positive slope going up from there. And our graph looks something like that. That is the graph of f of x equals x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 16. And what we've gone over really is the method that you can use, whether or not you could graph this with other things. You could graph more complicated functions as well, because we know how to find the critical points from the first derivative and the inflection points from the second derivative and put that all together on an analysis chart. For more graphing of different functions using calculus to find the local max, mins, and other features, including inflection points, check out the video on the right. For a playlist about videos all about calculus, check out the playlist on the left. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that was helpful.